First of all, good morning to everyone.
Christmas
We've come together at a time just before the great celebrations of Christmas and New Year. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about these celebrations that are about to come.
Christmas
Christmas the celebration of Christmas is widely known around the world, and whether people are Christian or not, or whether they observe the holiday as a celebration of the birth of Christ or not, it's widely known around the world and is enjoyed as a delightful, a joyous experience.
Christmas ki dusin tihandi that did ngalia jidan mixi nyamyos kayo mare the gasan nyamane di dusene and jidan jigore se jig goar ma do jigore hagoa zama do di da jige di dusin de zego jidan da ga de chigye da den chuja de an jige ngai jig di se gi de ga jig chowa nyamyos ligo mare.
Having said that, I personally have no experience of Christmas. I have no experience of its role and impact on society, or even the particulars of all the various traditions that are associated with it.
Christmas Manjugu Losa Titan Teta, Losagi Titan, Manju Losa Jorwa, Dida, Christmas Titan, Tushin Titan, Chigba Rochi, the Isare Samudo.
But from what I've observed, I think it's actually very similar to the New Year celebration within my own culture, within the Tibetan culture.
Manju Losa Titan Goria, dear chicken, down what he got dear show either. Manjugu Losagi Jetan Goria, dear chicken, council, let the shows. Then the Christmas key, Jetan the Jigba into the council get that say how to them.
So first, this morning, I'm going to describe or talk a little bit about how Tibetans celebrate Losa and what it means to them. And then you can decide whether what I understand as the main communal festival of the year is similar to that of Christmas or not.
Losa said, that Losa San 9 years to be Kangbachasan Zangmo and the Jigget Zangmo that Nanglolia do a Genshe, that Zangmo, then it Jigget New Shadows, no new colors, that New Shadow Chazan, Zangmo Sugore.
The Losa or New Year is a time of deep cleaning our entire home and everything within it. So all the hooks and the crannies and everywhere is cleaned deeply. The home, our clothing, everything is thoroughly cleaned.
And this year, and the Pamazuki, Garaji Chigorasene, and the Chipuzolia, and the Dulo Sabata, and the Chig Losaring Lasag, Kala, and the Chiyabusag, the Sayatu Chasaji, and the Chig. Sag to Jessiare, Puzuliane, Dulo Sabatiare, and Jigge, and Puzulia, Nyambatea, two Shin Chasam, Pamiki to stage Chigore.
parents make additional preparations in that it's a time when the extended family and friends come together, so food is prepared for this, as well as new clothes for themselves as well as the children, and the new clothes serve as gifts to their children.
Nganzugi lumbiki kwa kisho madu bwebe chida shio nganzu lumbika la chine karashi warasane chisa losa amase chiyores losa amase de da losa tsebi chikdi losa gochigi wores losa tsebi chikle dene losa amase de shongobu ni ligi des chisa nganzu shongobu no lang ane chige kangbana le chömu puya dang buye puya dang an chige da chöshem dilya dunlya ane nganzu kawse da chik 년바들이 파초산 디고를 디시 쳐부에 님을 가시 자고된 직시 때 지게 안에 아직 말기 되네기 매도 슈구 매도다 되는 인줄 봐 직시 자고 디 마샤베네 산쇼 오고네 안에 로사 아마세디 리고를 제래 로사 아마리게래 제가 로사 아마리게도 간주디 모불 질라네 제지 투면나 로사 아마게 오다 콘주 야고 제지 지민도세네 로사 아마 가우용 말레스 ane denik de ya che oda losa amati pe ya bu che che losa amati ka hu ngor che losa amati de shogan ba chi ka che ka losa ka wa ji ne del ya ko ra je de zhu ta ga zhu go re sin de pa ma ji ge de bu su le de xi go re.
There's a custom that is particular. I don't know if it's particular to our region, but I can't say whether it's supported throughout the Tibetan world, but certainly in our region. Our parents tell us that on the first day of the New Year, very early, then the mother of Losar, the mother of New Year, she will come to our home and she will have a look at our house. And if she sees that it's clean and the shrine has been set up beautifully with flowers and other offerings, this will bring great joy to her mind. And she'll go from home to home early in the morning. And there she'll be looking to see just how clean the house is and how beautifully the shrine has been arranged. Then for Losar, because the celebrations over some days, so from the beginning of Losar, the entire extended family come together and they all wear their new clothes, they feast on delicious food that's been especially prepared, and so this is then how Losar is celebrated as a community.
디 동사회 제리아 되네 자동거래 디 동사회 제리아 되네 칼라신에 사기래 되네 칼라사세회 제리아 되네 아니 지금 졸라 춘ሹ로 시켜줘봐 나 아마 밤에게 부술야 디난바 냠바다 아마라 루션에 디나 루션 누코서 젠단 거래 아니 갑제로다 되네 신도로다 되네 안지 루션에 안도로 사고 내 부수 실로 봐 참야지지 아니 연구야 칼라사 주술래 두시거래 쇼자 that ningu 쇼자는 ningu 칼라서 니추 중이도와 제사 당보 투보동 야랑 투보동 that 야랑 산에 투보동 거래 되네 자동 되네 칼라사 되네 주 알아동하자 알아동 되네 부우슬 냠바제지 루전데 부우슬 점자 참여도 거 되네 ningu 칼라마 디바.
When the family rises on the first day of Losar, then first they gather together and they will drink some soup. Thereafter they'll drink some tea. Then they'll have a meal together, and thereafter the adults will have some alcohol. And then a small bag containing gifts that the parents have prepared will be given to the children. And then some fruit and biscuits will be enjoyed, and then the kids can go outside and play.
세바직니 바도 소소라랑기 룸비게 샤다 니 제게 수수기 밤에 분야 나서 좀 칼라서 뭐도 샤다님도요 말. 근데 세비직리아는 건발에 춘시줘야 되는 세바 숨이야 소식의 강백가리야 다쇼랑제 되는 지게 초부야라 되는 부여 되는 세바 숨시에 되는 소식의 lumbi기 다 양지 인사여로 연소 뒤에네 되는 공소 양지게 칼라사야 다진의 지게 장도야라 소바데 되는게 양 두스진의 지금 얼마도 세버직 니라 디 소소 낭매다 분야디마도 치료디게 다 소소 분야 치료에네 디서 초등말 소소 낭랑게 됨 낭매스 염드시거래 아니 주저 치료기 분야다 강변 예연도 와요 디서 좀야다 아니 지금 명화신 바 소소 거원이 어디에 좀야다 딘시거래.
On the morning of the first, when we rise, then we are only with our immediate family, those that we live with, and later in the day we will go out to the neighboring monasteries, making offerings, and then on the third day, on our rooftops we'll hang new prayer flags, and then at that point we will either travel to our extended family or they will join us, as well as our other friends. We all gather together. So it's from the third day of the new year that one mixes with people outside of one's immediate home.
나 보고서도 기우시고라로 살았을 때 기운 거로와 나 파마솔리아 가시에 강아티기래 강아 가르슨 낭 교보를 지내 다 로설이야 안 부zul이야 둘로 제거야 칼라 지기하고 사고야 다 되는 처상 직대도 아니 미자는 우야 불렌차기로 불렌 망부차기도와 안에 되는 차고래 안에 되래 안에야 지금 변조 의견서도 강하세요 말아봐 안에 되래 안에 가브리엘이야 안지기야 부zul이야 지 둘로다 되는 지도 보고 니숨 줘봐네 아직 둘로 차상 야고 찍바로 매번에 같이 찍리 돼서 야가다 돼서 캐와쇼바네 안 부하시 아 콜레야가 돼서 알이야 요아마 제마스 비게 안 부글에 셈 마기와 차야도 안에 상이데 둘로가 부셈 동로 지 규모 되야 되네 는 파마디게네 아주 셈야 강아래야다 되네 강아지고래.
The Losar period is a period of great fun and joy, especially for children. For parents, though, it can be quite challenging, especially if they are financially poor, because they need to buy or make nice clothes for their children and give something that the children will feel comfortable and proud of when they mix with children from other homes. Also, they need to put on a feast for many days, and all of these things cost money. And moreover, they need to ensure that each of their children gets clothes of a similar quality, because if it's perceived that one child got better than another, then the one child will feel hard done by, will feel neglected and uncared for. So there's quite a lot of pressure on parents, especially those who face financial hardship.
제가 원이보다 되네요나 저 로사 견섬리도 양 가시게 다른 뭐 좋아제 안주 모두 발라서 봐야 양 가브리엘이야 지 카테도 받네요도 안지 되네가블이 안데 어단 로냐망서 로사 가블이야 차산염도 요르다 달로 민도 달랑 무슨염도 점이야 라마서서 베야 셈리야 지기 되네 마기버 초나 연구래 다른 뭐 줘야다 가브리엘이야 사상 카테도야 연구로 와되네 되네 연구로 와지 가시에 안지 가브리엘이 로살레 말랭이 시송아 연구로 와 되네 이제 안 되려 안 로살레도 가시리야 지 어디네 투야 라마서 녀마디네 요르다 되네 레세빅 되네 다 셈마기바래 연구를 돼.
Moreover, because Losar is the time of gathering together and seeing your whole entire extended family and people that you're close to, there may well be some who cannot join. They cannot join because they've moved far away or they're abroad, or others who have passed away. And then at the time at Losar, one recalls them, and this can bring some sadness to the mind of recalling past celebrations when you as an entire family could be together. But now this year, there are a few empty seats at the table, so to speak.
that in Christmas not you couple peshi dira jiparo shumugi resmudo.
This is the family gathering experience that I have. So I think it is actually quite similar to what in your culture for Christmas you experience as well.
Na juge Christmas ade da Yeshu bi chungga dujin zigo orwada. Moni china nga juge da samda da de da nga juge manju dobishna nyama de wada dene ge chungga duji se de nga juge riksho ya ji ge chimora zigo mal. Na yaorum chege da chungga dujin de do se zigo orwa. 제가 당한쪽에 지도가블라 난주 총가도지 제에디 다이 직발에 한주 경험치가 총가도지 지도 가르치는 총가도지 야고 뒤시 총액이 뒤시 때 야고 휴식을 쌓지 모르 지고로 와다 지고비 김천에 가르치는 나서 양원에 나서 강화세야다 디기 주비게 탑름 띵행 나서 배 야고직 중앙자 되네게 가부치는 나서게다 뒤시 가부치고로 와 제가 나서라 강아 제가 너 누구쇼 지게 질레 다다디 마기네 야가래 삼고마도 야고징 말와 진짜 나서라 강아 세한다 디기 주변 남든 지겐지 파기와 디게와도 빼 야고래 선능한 저게 대할래야 아는 아 저기 가수지고로 와다 뒤신지에 뒤지고 디난 신지고로 와다네 메쇼코로 총야디 그래서 코롱기 밀야 안 동아세야다 디기 주야기 시행 밀야 안 잠제 삼다디 그런 걸 랍제티고로 와 디다가 딩아들로 고해지 그래서 데니걸 랍된 제가 야고 시우 깨버려 대배 뒤수들 배 야고 중샤 삼백에 땅아 저게 예수 일하지가 샘려야 가하나 깨와디 가든지야디 근데 더나로지 디 제고로 와다.
The second aspect of Christmas, that the religious aspect, the celebration of the birth of Christ. So whilst this we have something similar in our culture in modern times, but this is earlier in the year with the birthday celebration of His Holiness. And this is something that is a new tradition and something that we have come to embrace and see of great importance. The meaning of His Holiness's birthday and why it's celebrated is the recognition that He is the unsurpassable teacher of the path that leads to freedom from suffering, the path that leads to lasting, stable happiness. So I believe similarly with those who celebrate the religious component of Christmas, that for them, they recognize that independence on the teachings contained within the Bible, that happiness can be achieved and problems and difficulties can be skillfully dealt with.
데니게 가서 동아세야나 디규트야 가서 잠제 람든 지겐지 두스케와레 딩안솔레 고해들이 제상 가서 배하고래 선데 뒤진 데네 삼다요도 아는 아주 갈스네 델야 그런 게 랍제들이야 디린 뒤스 데네야 디린의 방에 그런 게 뒤총와레 그런 총네 랍제 기대와네 디 랍제데 네 냠는 지긴 인생 비게 가지고 뒤바로 끼고 거래다 가서는 디 그런 게 가서는 Genla Jabachore, Zawachigore, Shengi Dunga, Chigioma, Ganga, Chigioma, Labjikavati, Oti, Ni Labjedi, Ni Yamden Chigins, Dirin Pa, Midi, Samlotadi, she count to the Chigins and Beganzo, that's some of the Ditango, what I'm to get Chigi Dushin Zi on the Galangazuke, Mandu Garum Chitunga Dushin, Zivine, Garum Chigi, Galop Karanawa, the Shenlia, Pembe, Sambada, Shenlia, Jamzesia, Shengi, Gangasia, the Digutu, the Galumadi, or Dinawadi, now I'm asking in Yamden Chigi. 인시비기다 겸적이 총가주진지도 디삼나 땅고고래 디 나진 지바다 아주 예수기 크리스마스 총가주진지요리나 안디 다가나 삼나 지바로 와 그런저기 잠제 냠는 라바디 만주 냠는 지기 인시비 아주 삼나 다시 dim바기에제 아주 삼 땅고에 되 원이제 디차고래
Recognizing how we all want happiness and to be freed from all forms of pain and difficulty, we also know that it's independent on the teachings of His Holiness that this can be achieved. So at the time of his birthday celebrations, the inner commitment that we all make is to live in accordance with His teachings, his teachings in terms of these are the virtuous minds to cultivate and to act under. These are the minds that bring suffering and are thereby to be abandoned and certainly not to be entertained, not to be expressed in any way. And we recognize that this commitment that we are making and living our life in accordance with His Holiness's wishes is the supreme way to repay His kindness, the supreme way to honor His presence in the world, the very best gift that we can give to Him. So I imagine for those who are religious, and that Christmas is not only a time of family celebration, but it also has religious significance, that they would approach Christmas in a similar manner with a recognition of the value of the teachings of Christ and a commitment to act as an example of those teachings.
That issue Koran to Koran Lapcheki, Shenliang to Milia, Jambatan, Sewachigore, Shenlia Dunga, Ganga Chigio Marshen, Dunga, Sewure, Lapcheki, did Lapjedida, Che Marazuki, Ishuki, Kelena, Melena, Suine, Azulia, Gohoyo, but Chikuchago, Ganga said, and Digituyala, and Jamzen Yamnejangazuki, that Chulu Chasanalia, Dusi Sungor, watches at the Nezang as a Nambishune, Shanla, Jambata Zivi, Yamnichor, said Sungor, Chizadineza, Azukiti, Jayok, Jikin Sempeke, Samata, Sosutelia, Gang to the Lalen, Tavaina, Azuki, that Conjogi, that Azuki, Duan the Conjogi, Samatawana, Shinji, do chatting as Conjo, some tidings to Dunda Jubaru, Chagoroa, Conjo, some jet, Dunda Jubaru, Chagoroa. As in Geshe said, the Chevaina, Dunda Jugo, Geshe said the Majevaina, then Dunda Jugo Marasonegi.
All religious traditions share the emphasis on not harming others, and not harming others through cultivating a heart of love and compassion. So this path of non-harmfulness through cultivating a love and compassion is common amongst all religions. So certainly, in the case of Tibetan Buddhists, then at the time of His Holiness's birthday, this is what we recall. And it's when one recalls one's refuge teacher, then one recalls his teachings, his advice, and how he lives his life, the example that he sets for us. And that inspires us to follow that example and become a worthy emissary of his teachings.
Na jige losa sedi yanjige losa was le that ditim de chigora that yan donaru samtana ngadu donda dire the losa wa le yundikala sawa lena laka sawa chiguri sigoroda that losa was le de bengazo kadunje de lonibi kablia ganga dam jigin marigwa nochu garchuwine ta cha cha baresta delya samtangoyo mares. That Losaba and Lady Kablaya, Losaba, di Losaba, dinner goes on me, and the Chiglaga, Yahuche, Sambuche, Shanley, Pempi, Javada, and Shanley, never make ye, and Chig, Randa, Shanigale, Pempi, Java, Chigi, Sempeke, Lehalmas, Yahuchi, Sempeke, or Dushene, some died, Chizan did Chigi. Some down with the Dichago, which is not Dujin, depending on as the Chala Yahuch Ravana, Rayagin, or didn't I did you see Yahu Jalat, Yahu Regulars and Galala Skigorova? That as the Kangachi given or dealing with the Kangachi, some big, that same mushroom gene, didn't social Kangachi given or that didn't have Kangachi, some big, same should be same Jochar. Social Yamba sort social legal donor to be a year or didn't aliad me legal donor to good, ding aliatic, the bear, whatever, some big social bear, Masig, Chicada, same school must lingua. One denying at the Lord Sabali, the Lord Sabbath, Yemig Gangada, Dungada, Ganga, Karchu in the pa, some Shatsa, Daddy, so your dance Kayomades. Says under Lord Sabbath, dinner sounding, Samba Samboche, Legati, Yaboche, Janlia, Pembig, Karituna, the Chigia, Sambig, Samlo, Dumbaki, and the ring Denegatan, Lord Sabbath, Kohabiabushura, so Chia, Kohabraso, the nation of the Galan like Yawade, Gadun Shawade, dinner Chagore.
Tibetan Losa, in English New Year, the meaning is identical. When you think about then these two words, New Year, the way that we approach this is today a new year starts, which means an old year is ended, it is finished. All the problems and difficulties of last year are now behind us. Today, I'm turning over a new page, opening a new chapter in my life. All those problems and difficulties from last year are behind me. Now what lies before me are opportunities. And this year, I'm going to make best use of these opportunities to live my life in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha and ensure that I live a life of great meaning and benefit. So this is how we approach the start of a new year. Kind of like if one attains something new, perhaps a great opportunity, the joy that arises in one's mind, recognizing the opportunities that this now presents for oneself. Or on the other hand, if one is in a particularly difficult situation, we know how this brings us down and can make us quite dispirited. So here, the new year is a time of turning away from all past problems and difficulties, recognizing it's behind us, it's done. I can learn from that, but now I have opportunities before me. I'm starting a new chapter, and this is a joyous time. Hence, the whole celebration of this time is one of joy, of moving forward.
Andine zadang juge losare Christmas re deneki dushin dele jige de dang ara ju ni jige da jige de shi sheba na shi da jige pama punja da chasan ju ji rang da re shen re chasan tu je ne an du je ne an ka wo che chasan ji ba nyen ba de ya re an ji su su ra ji ka wo je ya re chasan som je ya de be ya wo wa sen be ge an ji de le ya an chasan sem ba sang bo 두스키 투야디 배야고래 스메 심미산다 제베네 데네 코로나서 데네기 기우제야고 야고고 고바 야고래 배야고래 와서 베게 지수 이라제야다 안에 소소랑랑 게 나주게 되지 데네 주에나 데네 야고래 대인사다 예 아주 데네기 두제 야고질리 차상 좀제 안티고다야다 고갑데네 라와레 지산다 디리니 소쟁에 안에 지게 코로나 예수기 갈롭당 안 가르는 것은 샬리아 제 잠세 제고레스 안동아 제교 말에 세베냠렌디 코로나 칼롭팅이 주기인 세냠렌치기스 다 로사발레도 로사바티네 손데기 디네기 냠렌디 바 게디나 디냠렌 제투바 지긴 세베가서 디네기 삼마다 dim바게고야디 안데 지게 게치모 차고레 제사 디네기 다 이슈기 칼롭나리아 잠제 제고레스도 류가 이스미고네 샬라 네바 기교 강아 제교 말에 시고로와 안제사 디네사 로사바티네 윤손데 네 류가 이스미고네 샬레 네베 레가사데 자와기네 지기메스 디네사다 샬레 펜베자와다 소소기 샬레 잠제 삼노데 강토도 땅토바데 지기 인생베다 도스체나가 저기 삼다디 디차고레
Before meeting our friends and our loved ones and exchanging gifts as one does at this time, then certainly in our culture, we would, if necessary, intentionally generate a joyous attitude at this opportunity. But that would probably spontaneously arise, not taking for granted this opportunity that we have to spend time with loved ones, to spend time, especially for those that we don't meet so often, and no matter what relationship we have with an individual, recognize that this opportunity to be with them, especially at a joyous time, and also at the time where we are starting this new chapter in our lives, this is a wonderful opportunity to interact with others in a spirit that's in accordance with whatever our own religious tradition is. And if we think of our friends from the Christian community, they, I would imagine, would be engaging with others in a similar spirit. Because the Christian tradition emphasizes that one should not cause harm to others in any way, not through our physical actions, our way of speaking, or even our way of thinking, but rather generate minds of love and compassion and interact with others with minds of love and compassion. And this is something throughout society that, if generated, will be of so much benefit, and when we interact with others, whomever they are.
That is sometimes that sometimes anybody can go to the Christmas in there, Losa Caplina there, that's also a Gawinyoda, Chiktuji, and the Chik Maravata, and Susuki, the Niganga, Sosochibu research, Shandadi, I want to go when you were to Puya, some Chichia to Tangalang Adi Juma, Malia, the Tuya, the Nebuya Yama, that the Meva Charles, some big, the Nigitonia, Semlia, and the Ganga, and the Nigi, and Jiggy. Ngalia, Chiki, Yambachekan, Bindu Sampi, Samata, and Dinetonia, Simlakanga, Yonsiber, what answer, Dijini, Shevana, Puzolia, Tulorosine, and Jiakumajana, Simlakanga, and the Genji, Pamaya Kanga, Ligor, says Yorba, and Dinashi, Denigitone, Chigre, Yajing and Yambati Gabriel, and I am many Pamig. Chigidan, Robada, Sulina, Yambati, Pre Yambati, the Dubara, Chamberlain, good Yambat. Deva Sambanaji Yambate Mena, Maradu, Yanti Perjotilia, Duba Mapata, and so seen Odin in but the Chunrako, Deva Camas, or Sembigida, Semlakanga, the Negans of Kanga, the Yonsigri.
What I've just mentioned then is one crucial approach for all to generate when interacting with others. However, for many, Christmas and New Year are experiencing quite a different way. They may, for example, not have anyone to meet. They may be alone. They may be with others, but missing those that they cannot be with, either because they are far away or because they have passed away. Or they may experience difficulties, like I mentioned earlier, families who are very poor and struggle to give suitable gifts to their children, or to make delicious food for their family. Or perhaps the gifts that they do give, that the people who receive them are quite disappointed, and that is made known. So for some, Christmas, for a wide variety of reasons, can be a time of difficulty.
And the Nigga, the Chikanga, Gori, and Ajumas, because some Chitini, some time, and Angazia, some the Ganga shoes, Ligore. Design the Niggi Ganga say, and the Segi, Tablam de Garichore, Lamna, that is done, Jugi, Lulia, Chigi, Ne Nazata, Chigi, Kala, Marawa, and Chikabi, Dumaru Shivena. That daily I send you Roboche, and the Gassic Shengi, Anzulia, Menjuche, Dunga Seata, and the Kala Jeche, Dulas, Ganga Seata, Yaji, Chava in the Dulo, Jeche, Dulo Quenche, Ganga Sevati, Yungore. In a Danga Semgi Tone, Semgi Gangadi, and the Shen, Shanagi, and the Chicken Anzulia, Ganga Sing, Sosoranke, Samloj Daje, Sosoranke, Semgi Gangadi, Sosoranke, Samla Daje, Ganga Sigur Mato, Chilogi Menjucheva, that didn't tone Gasi to Yomar. Lui Naza that the Nigiti, Chilogi Shengi Ropache, then Shengi Gangasi, Shengi and Ropache Gangasi to Yorde. Master Semgi Gangadi, Sosu Semgi Gangadi, Sosoranke, Samla Daje, Meva Sur Mato, Mishandagi Tushche, the answer some Matawina, Sosoranke, Samloch Matawina, Shandagi Tushikachevene, so Semgi Gangadi say to Mare.
When one does experience problems and hardships of any type, there's all too often a tendency to focus on this difficult situation, and everything else is pushed aside, forgotten, and just our problems dominate our thought. Thinking about what we don't have, thinking about what we would like to have but don't. So here, if we divide unwanted situations into two, on the one side, we are experiencing physical hardship, then, especially in a society such as ours, we can receive assistance. For example, if there's illness, then we will receive some care. Or if we're experiencing material hardship, then charities or perhaps even strangers can support us. But in terms of and in this way, through material support, the physical hardships that we're experiencing can be satiated. But in terms of mental anguish, no matter what physical support we get, this will have very little impact, if any at all, to deal with the mental anguish that we experience, particularly from being in situations that we find unwanted, undesirable. The only way to deal with them is through transforming our way of thinking. Material gifts will not resolve our mental anguish. Changing our way of thinking, this will.
Mi shandagi sosugi rangi samlo madawa inde mi shandagi kare chebina kanga se tu mare se pena sanyo jumnen digi dona le dusun yore dani dagi goyingi ane gasa shanda suji gondu gyurche ane dani kone le duye ane nyebarka wigi ane gonyi shins gonyi gyurse 다니 다기 고행이 아니 현유 수지 권도 규로 라니 다니 코나 레드나 아니 라니 순신 안디 렌데베 아니 녀바가 권이 규르스.
For those who have really taken control, taken charge of their mind, no matter what they encounter, they won't experience difficulties. No matter what in the material world or from other people happens to them or even arises within them, they will be able to deal with that skillfully and will not experience any anguish at all. And here there's a quotation from a sutra from the Buddha, which is really pertinent. We are our own protector. No one else can protect us. What protects oneself is mindfulness. This difficult to obtain protector is obtainable.
Jasa danyi gwenyi shisede soso rang gwen sede robo chen gyokwendi kanga le gyokwendi gwen sigurwa gyokwendi. Jasa ta soso semji kanga yudi kapla ta soso rangi dine samtang che 강아지 소소의 셈게 강아지 세고구리에서 지산 라니기 셈게 강아 매바 쇠야디 고엔지 수치고라선 소소라라지 고리에서 당연되게 고인시세 디송고래.
The first line, we are our own protector. The protector is what protects one from problems and difficulties. And our actual protector is our own mind, our own way of thinking. And our own way of thinking, this is in our own hands.
shenda sushi gondu gyuru sedir sosugi deji sheba nanju sosugi lule ne nazo chunya da dinde ne membigi menju sheje shangi kanga senga shen shenda robo cheche sosu kanga se tugures ina sosule semji kanga tanga ji semji kanga yogyodi sosugi samla mata wa ne mi shenda chigi ane shenda shangi dado cheche dado kanga ko kanga dado cheche ngane chebene kanga se tugmares shenda sushi ane gondu gyo soso kanga sege de shamba sushi tugures sosugi samlo nange kanga di sosugi samlo tache meba suyo gormado sosugi samlo mata ba shaje kanga di gazina di kurdo bena ane shandage gazi roboje dado che jine chebene nganzu kanga di meba suyo tugmares or shanda sushi gondu gyos.
The second line, the first line is, we are our own protector. And the second line, no one else can protect us. So here, whilst others can have an impact on our material situation, for example, receiving the suitable medical treatment can have an impact on our body, others cannot directly take care of our mental situation. It is up to us to deal with our own minds. It's up to us to transform how we relate to or think about whatever situations we encounter. That is not something that others can take care of for us. Others can't change how we deal with life's difficulties. This is something that only we can do, And in this way, we are our own protector. No one else can protect us.
Dene na da sosugi semyi kanga di sosugi sung jige se kugu yobena da sosugi yandage se tu mare sosu sam tamada wane yandage roba chene sosu semyi kanga se tu mares jesa sosu semyi kanga di sosugi samlo daje semyi kanga di samlo daje samlo ji daje meba so gures jesa di so go baza da kan su go res de gaza rani sung shin den bas den bada 지사 라니 손시에서 소소게 강알파 손급체야 가르치고래서네 제바다 셰럽된 거 그래지 전시된 거 그래지 지사 셰럽셔야디 가르치고래서네 네 디제나 데네데네 강알리기도와 디제나 데네 인구도 디진 데네 삼다네 데네 차기도 선배 삼로 제바 셰럽기 파 삼로다 제바 델야 잠바디기 오다 디제네 고 셰럽기 제바치네 오 데네 삼당고 선배게 삼로시 리야도 데 잠바디기 디파 덴제 잠바디 고 덴비 마체버지 진제도 삼다와이나 니 강아들의 세일에 소리 제자도 시고 그래서 강아 세타디 소수게 셈지 강아디 소수게 셈지 삼다네 강아 간데 세고래 라도 숭 간데 숭고 그래도 델야 소수게 잠바 셰럽다 잠바 땡고 그래서
In the first two lines we see that our happiness, our suffering, this is up to us. In that we are the ones who have the most direct impact on this. We are the ones who can protect ourselves from pain and misery and enhance our suffering. It really is up to us, not up to others. This isn't something that we can give to others to resolve for us. Our way of thinking is up to us. So it is our way of thinking that we have to change, and how to do so. So the third line then is, what protects oneself is mindfulness. And to be more expansive, it's mindfulness and intelligence. In that when we're experiencing situations that we find unwanted, whatever they may be, anything that leads to a disturbance of our peace of mind, the way to respond is to reflect rather than to react. It's through reflecting rather than reacting that we'll be able to skillfully deal with life's difficulties. We reason through using reason or thinking through our problems with our intelligence, with our wisdom. In this way, we can resolve all the problems that we encounter.
Dene samdaide dene nyebara kabigo gondigi toptuguri esachi susoi nyeba kayo gondu gyursede gonni gyurse gonyeba kayo gonnie gyursede danganzuge dusine nyeba kayo gonsede nyeba kawa se top kawa rakago saje danganzuge jige ya chue nang chue shebena tarbada temjiki bio gobansede da tarba topna gedina devani devamado dungayo mare sanji goba topna gedina devani devamado dunga mebare 제가 델야 탈바당 상이고와 토바네 소수기 대화다 대화마도 동화 매바마서 대화 띵이 대화 아니 제야 디기세야다 동화 세야다 디기 주비게 탑람 줍투겐 제가디 베데네기 냐바가와 대수이네 소수기 삼로다 셰럽기 제바제 템바땡 곰템 냠네 제바나 데네기 냐바가비 탈바다 탐지기고 고바 톱투그리에서 예투그리에서 또 The
third line, what protects oneself is mindfulness, leads into the fourth line. This difficult to obtain protector is obtainable. So there are two key components in this fourth line. That, firstly, to transform our way of thinking is difficult. This needs to be recognized, and it's explicitly stated. It's not something that happens overnight. Whatever inspiration arises within one doesn't lead to a radical transformation that is everlasting. It requires sustained attention, sustained usage of mindfulness and intelligence to bring about a lasting transformation. And the second key component in this line is a lasting transformation is obtainable. This isn't beyond any of us. Liberation or nirvana is obtainable. Liberation is so called because it's a state a mental state, a mental way of being, where one is liberated from suffering. And being liberated from suffering, one abides in a state of calm, peace, gentleness. Or to express it differently, one abides in lasting happiness, never punctuated or disturbed by even a moment of discomfort. And all that one encounters, one engages with a state of peace and wisdom. And to achieve the state of liberation comes about in dependence on meditation.
도신 대인제 소수기 셈리야 야네 양도 데니고 삼다 야네도 삼다바이나 아니 소수기 다 탈바다 탐지기고 와마시베네 소수리 셈리 디기리 용 투구리에서 그래.
We are our own protector. No one else can protect us. What protects oneself is mindfulness. This difficult to obtain protector is obtainable. We know from all too frequent experience, life is difficult. And sometimes the problems that we experience really are overwhelming. Problems at times in our life seem to pour down on us like rain, encountering one impossible situation after another. At times like that, it's really, really difficult to turn to mindfulness, to deal with it. Rather, when our life is just in its ordinary state, it's not necessary that everything is going well, but just in its ordinary state, then at those times we need to utilize them well, because these are the times when we can develop habituation to a new way of thinking, to look at our mind, understand our mind, and develop skillful techniques so that as we then encounter more difficult situations, we can deal with them. So the key here is when life is going okay, this is when we need to put the time in so that we have a lot to draw on when more difficult situations arise.
소소랑게 강아 되니게 당아야 지게 고합되네 민도가 지게 나라 직부레샤 능한 직되니기 직민도 선배 셈교보당 되니기 셈ля 강아 유나 당아 저기 디셈디 당아서 삼는 다체 안에 매바서 고래 세지 대상 얘기 소수기 매야서야지 잠바다 시신 시랍다 잠바 된지네 매바서 고래 손으로도 잠바다 시 땡고래서 당한주 될이야 셰랍다 잠바니데 간에 스페시 땅고를 납나 당한주 삼다제 다당봉아 저기 현다디게 배 지금 저록바다 거원이 투야다 권어줄 배기우다 저 소설면다 당하면 콘술도 하면도 샘비게 샘리베 강아 리그로와 데네지 다 레디컵레나다 말레니엘네 삼다메나 다 간에 땅고를 납나 당한주 셰랍데 베제다데 당보 셰랍데 제바치고로 와데 제바치고로 와 제바치디컵라 아니 다가 저기 미코론을 삼다바는 점리나리야 기합만 오슈추어레스 안다데 내가 저기 기합시한다 내가 저기 다들 강아 체신빙아서 하고 다 아프가니스탄 소야다 시리아 샤다 데네기 지금 망고질이야 또 삼다는 대수 지압에 사야 돈야 강아 아니 지게 내나서 대 면주기 로바지게 매베 강아 아니 지게 샤행기 지기 왕게 랑게 분야다 제네게 지게 부디게나 카제고가 강아 안에 지게 데네게 셴기 왕 자왕 다제 뇌슈 토네 강아 베 그시고 주여바다 안 데네게 삼다도 겁라 다 페니 디제나 지합 데네 룸베샨달에 교보디게라 사야도야 가가 네나제게 강아 네레 면주게 강아 로버지게 메바 강아 셴기 왕유 시제 자왕 토네 강아 안도 진을 랑기 되바로시 강아 두 마트에 강아 데니스도 삼다다 다 프리디 강아 디에 삼다 다 소소라는데 당하 가르두스 나랑 가르두스 니 되서 개합대 간에 실을 되셔 and then shungi alia tado kashtu. And then Arati to Chidu. Chesata, Yahape, Shide. Then Ranzu did you can get up to Shide. Shungi tado yago. Bajik Sosuaka, Menju Tonere, and Jigi Karina, Liaga Mavena, Shungi tado chia, the Sungu Yago, and the Nigiton Be Yaguresha, Sambigi. Chesa did the tennis in the ha. The Niki, the Chantal, the Niki, the Basic Yawashu Redo, and as in the Semicanga Tewas came to Aliami, Shungi, Robochico, Shungi, Tato Yawa, and Kiapti, she the Bear Redo. Then Hana concentrate, but then Happy Masigi, Feel Livanazesha. That had the Semikibu Mindu said that the Niki, the Kagu Minua, Sambiki, Lucian, something Yawashu Resha, and Pay Yawaresha, Sambi, Malaya, Capio chicken, do Mala Shungi, Capio chicken, the Niki. Do a robot chicken, do Tado chicken, do pay our red or assembly, do chin sometime, the Jing at your assembly, some of ma, she do, and do chin, Jambati, shaking do, sheriff do, Jebache, then the Jambati, or the not pay Yakuresha assembly, Jambati, on high operation, Hala Tado Yaku do, Sambiki, Jambati, do chede, and so Poya Ligo, Pobikigore, the Pobiki do, the Jipobo Shimbadi, Mamacharu, do chin sometime over.
In this verse of the Buddha, the term mindfulness is explicitly used, but we should understand that this means both mindfulness and intelligence. And the third line was, what protects oneself is mindfulness, and we can understand that this to mean also and intelligence. So how to use mindfulness and intelligence then? So let's first then look at intelligence. Here, a mistake that one all too often makes when encountering problems and difficulties is that, for example, we may focus on what others have, and that overwhelms us, and our suffering increases. Or, as a partner to this, we focus on what we lack, and this overwhelms us. We need to use intelligence rather. If we use our intelligence, we can quickly change this dispirited way of thinking, this way of thinking that it just sees our own situation as so pitiful. And we can do this by recalling what we have seen on the news, for example, and comparing our situation to that of what the vast majority of people in this world endure. There are so many people who live in countries where not only is the pandemic present, but so too, of course, are the other healthcare concerns that people everywhere suffer under. But in their countries, healthcare is inadequate or inaccessible. That is not our situation. Moreover, in all too many countries, people live with the threat of violence. And whilst that is the case for some individuals in our country, there are whole societies, even whole nations, that is a very real threat. Most of us aren't in that position. And in terms of food insecurity, there are all too many regions of the world where this is occurring right now, where people are hungry, where parents are unable to feed their children, where they can see their children wasting away before them, and there is no solution. Moreover, there are many billions of people also living in countries where the government does not care for them, and even others where the government persecutes them. We do not live in such a country. And while certainly we can and we do find faults and wish that things could be different in so many ways, when we use our intelligence, we can see that the faults that may be real are insignificant compared to what so many billions have to endure every day. And the reason for calling this to mind is to put into perspective the hardships that we have. Not to deny them, but to put them into perspective. And this can bring strength to mind, because we can be reminded that not only are we not persecuted by our state, not only does the government not care for us, but the state does accept a general responsibility of care to educate us, to protect us from harm, to protect us from illness and so forth. Moreover, strangers, especially through the expression of charities, also care for ourselves and others in society. So here what we are explicitly doing is using our intelligence to see the difficulties that we do have in their truer perspective. And this then serves to uplift our mind, to give us inner strength and protect us from becoming weak and dispirited and overwhelmed by life's hardships, but rather recognizing that in their truer perspective, what we have, the hardships we have, are endurable. We can deal with them.
Samdana dinichik samdabena nga zuki semjika nga jik seyagi kanga chungurya jiktire. Ta samdana jikla dinichdana yagwore bene nga zuki dushine. Ta nga zuki mi mangbo nyamdo zom che jikte jike jik zehor jikchebene. Ta dinichine ane karsa Gabrielya Geshe Thubten Rabten nga zu chokwa chambura jik chambu yobene nga mitike chambu yobene. Bendigo zom che ba chi de Gabriel and Gabriel namjul tuen da da Geshe Thubten des mari thone ba yang jik pa machama charoyagi jik dene ko charoge nyanga ji ngoro ba dene za dene ga ju namjunda gyunthune ba chamlo mangbu le chambu ine ya sik ji chi sik jik she ta da des namjul tuen mari bi jin ji ne nen san yin pa be ne ba jik nyama 나시면 뭐 자원하지 차다 찌찌를 막아와 차기 되네게 냥아봐 냥아지 용거로와 되네 용거래 안 되네 진짜 다 아직 디리 무슨 뭐be 집에 갑려야 아직에 아주 창하러 동면에 디기 괜찮네 안 강아태야 안 디면배 아직 되네게 두스강아 망보다 안 되래 아직 두스 용거래 선배게 되네게 용거래 선배 삼나 따제 디링아 나랑 직부제 되네 되게 되네야 되네 냠도 좀매대 약으로 줘셔야 되네 냠도 좀 봐이나 지지를 봐셔 지지를 수셔 안 요라나 나 강아태 용 시버래 당아 직부도 세외네 되네 강아디게 태야 민도 와서 태야 말했어 아직 아주 제가 디와 있는데 지게 야구도 아마도 아직 자 현대지 와네 아니 민망보 좀 두세데 지리가블야 지가게도 한 초현대 가시게 셈 당하며 봐지 mem다게도 소연의 망불리고 와 제가 되네기 냥아 친구용을 때 정하데 나라 지부 되네 맞아 뭐 지부 되면 되네 냥아 마용 배하고도 와선비게 제가 누우치는 삼다와나 다소서 지부 돼야돼 지샤선배 삼데 야구로 중샤선배 삼리기로 와다 야구 중샤선배 삼레베나 내가 지구에 샤다 요금 누선배 삼로데 매와 차로라 진짜 강한데 매와 시로 누우시는 삼다나 돈에 삼다웨나 아니 소소라나게 지게 셈배 교부 뭐고 차야지 셈 주미야지 아니 손야 판도요래.
A second technique that I'd encourage you to employ is that when encountering others, as one does, especially at this time together, one has frequent gatherings of friends and acquaintances. And here, all too often, even with people that we've had a good relationship with over perhaps many years, that independence on a facial expression that we interpret in a particular way, or a choice of words, or a particular tone, that we take offense to this, that some doubt about our relationship with this person arises. And the friendship that we've had, or the acquaintance, the peaceful acquaintance we've had with this person for many years, can be harmed. Perhaps even harmed severely, in that the thought arises, I hope I never see you again. This will be our last encounter. So when one encounters unwanted situations when with others, remind ourselves that what is going on here is not the entire story. Just like in the previous segment, where we think of what we observe in the world, to see what problems we experience in a truer perspective. In this instance, also remind yourself, there is a broader perspective. This person and I, we have got on for a long time. Maybe Right now, they've acted in a way that we're not so comfortable with, but there could be many reasons to this which are unknown to us. We don't know what's going on in their life, or if there was any intention behind this at all. So, let me see this rather in the broader perspective, that this person and I, we've got on well enough for a long time. Let's just rather let this go. Not grasp at it, not give it extra importance, and not see it as something unique and special, but rather, sometimes things happen. People act in a way that we find unwanted, or express themselves in a way we find unwanted. It's normal, and it's not a big deal, and let it go. Let it go.
Dine zade sosuge semje kanga yoya chi de sosuge samlu tanda thone semje kanga se de one chike shivu chike yobade de sebo shuri bene arangi nyamyo ro chi chingi nyamyo chi shevene kashi de kisni ma shese kya kashi ko yumare jiza de karichung wore zne nyama azu chike kombal de chara ro de kablia 안도시네 안 저게 저거라 저제네 저라나로 되는 마 저를 말해도 탑산하래 넘진 저도도 치료 탑산 고제 겸 누구래 제가 니님들 말해도 탑산데 고제 겸면도 고제 민도 이제랑 삼는 아디링이 고제 겸에 제도 와 삼제 잠바 제도 와 삼제 되는 내 고제체 탑산하래 봐 주거래 나 잡는 주제 단 칼라스여체 남사 지 yes made party gangi labodu shin kalas hayan shorwa du shin du jene den지 lawache 하면도 직전에 도 스타로 하지면도 현자 할때 네 하얀데 가와시 하나 섬서 안데 맞지 하게 수스다리 num대면도 하야면도 num면도 체 랑아디게면도 내 구마에 계산이 제다 num다 내시 세상 계산이 네 계산 도 섬다데 답변 원신도 배 중에도 구마디 되는 배 독자셔서선 비게다 코로나에다 되니기 직파수 가와 두선 제야 줘야 돼. 니네 강아 체기 삼로 나 강아 개 체기 다 여러 와다 돼. 젠로시.
The key point that I've been making throughout this is whether a situation that we encounter is a problem or not depends on our way of thinking, how we approach it. It's our way of thinking that makes what is in itself just a mere situation a problem or not a problem. So to recount a story from my own experience. So in the monastery, early in the morning, we will go to early morning puja, and then I would return and I would prepare some breakfast. But on one occasion, I returned and the kitchen was unlocked, and I was surprised. Normally the kitchen would be locked and I'd have to unlock it after I returned, and this time it was open, and I thought, oh, maybe I forgot to lock it. That's unusual. And then I went into to my little kitchen, and I reached to get the pot up here, but there was no pot. I went, that's odd. And then I looked for the oil. There's no oil. There's no vegetables. And then immediately the thought arises, it's been stolen. And I don't have much, but now what little I have is gone.
Za denigi pe kuma dujare sa de denigi jiko khon la ya da kin ro sma son de kin shu ju ro da nga khon la pe kuma dujare de be dujare je sha se be khon la ya shu yor de ina namyu da jige yen ju ge labje kya we ge so su ge sam da ha de sa chi de nge gar nam sang gar sam da wa la a ji da kuma jan di mi gyu chu bu ji ne ma re ko jo wu ji yu re da ko jo wu ji le ko le ang ne ji ko ko gang che che da ko dis nge di kuma ja che des da won ning che da ko le pen ba ji ya wo yong wa shu san be ge ma lam ne jap che an de du ste de wa ko le ya ko gang che yo da ko gang che che ko ka yo ma re che zong ko le ya nge di ge sa ya du ye de che che ko be ji ya bo da ko le ya ko jong wa shu sam che nge du se ma lam jap che du ste be de ne za sem ya energy ge ko la ya sa da 강아스 가에 채면서 제자디 네 콘솔 강아리 콘솔 강아 중요래 콘솔 야구 판에 야구를 했으면 삼로 뒷단에 긴기 네 거저구마자샤 배두자샤샤서 콘솔이야 겹로 균제제야 당하고 코로나야다 삼로 마중하디 메디 삼다에 긴기할이야 내지 강아 같이 맞아 제자디 소속에 냠녀래 제자도 소속에 삼로 당당에 토네 소속에 강아 세투야디 세우주 차기도
Immediately, anger and frustration arose within me because this person, this awful person, how could they do this to me, arose within me. But then, fortunately, I recalled the advice of my teacher, which was that if someone steals from you, they are poorer than you, for sure. Most probably in terms of material wealth, they are poorer, but certainly in terms of their attitude, in that they are experiencing, they are feeling greater impoverishment than yourself, and they act under this desire to have what they believe they lack, to obtain what they believe they lack. So they are in need. Whether we would consider them in need or not is irrelevant. They consider themselves in need, in fact in a state of desperation, that they would engage in an act that carries some danger. So recognizing that this unknown person who had stolen from me, and whilst I have really almost nothing worth stealing and what I have now is gone, I could be joyful because I could recognize that someone who was experiencing greater need than me now had that need partially satiated. And that then is okay. Someone else, their problem is less, and I can now just let go of this, and I can make a plan and deal with it. And in this way, in no time, I could let go and experience no further problem or difficulty or anguish at all.
Dinashin, that me, Yama, that Janania, Burlia, Yanagi, Onjur Cheje, and Digablia, Chike, Be, Lama Tabatiki, Jungana, Judak, Dubu, she was not what, Dija Kabla, Dinekablia, Anti Tabachik, Lama Chik in the Jungana, Jushin, Gale, Shu, to put down the Kabla, then Koronga Lamaki, and Koronga, some two stangures, Ganatical, two some time and the Ganati Young Mares, two slapsi capture, Korongi, then Yamyon with Tone, Anti Korongi, some danger to Ganamate, Yamyotone, Jiki, Nesus, you are Dengidi, my Dordish Mash,
I'll give another illustration from the time when Tibet was in a particularly difficult situation after China, or the Communist Party had overrun and overtaken Tibet, and they imprisoned and abused so many people in awful ways. Then the prisoners who were educated in the Dharma, the lamas and the other Geshis, they would give advice to their fellow inmates on how to deal with these really dire situations that they were all experiencing.
Isa Denigi, that's when Gana Luchine, and Yimenianga, Laga, Sauria, Doria, Lagama, Oshi, Gugoris, that Kalas and Paradiso Tombo, Ducabla, Yichi Duadinade, and the Chikemigation, the Bear, Yabure Sada, and the motorship Yabure Sada, and all the teachers who Condulabana, Conjugi, Shevatilia, Yamlan Jekore said, got the Yidi, Colo, and the Jango, and the Paraparalia, and the Chico Chasazomchin, Duglingore, then the Yabola and the Anti Timtan Kangatigore, on Dusine, Jigor Sidua.
The prisoners were made to engage in forced labor, carrying heavy rocks and breaking heavy rocks. They also had to spend time memorizing the Mao's little red book and then recite his expressions or his sayings and praise him. And if they didn't do it in a way that seemed sincere or genuine, they would get severely beaten.
Denigi Ganga said that is that some of Dana Chilia, Adanga Zengana, Chuson, Danga Donda Mebel, Yanga Zengana, Jungalia, Dubushu, the Kaleshu, Sempik Denigi, and the Kaladi, Jore, Desati, Jore, then Delia, the new Chikosuki, Jehap, Zenzuchi, Pomboti, Yapure Light, Semlia Ganga Shur, or done, Yamigi, don't want to Sosuki, Jehap, Savare, ane ine gyamgi shu yakure pe yakure se ada manzo ge ane ji shungdi ge yakure se del ya gyabyo chegor se be samlode yung marwa de kanga shuli gi rwa de jesa pe dukjare nganzo sa je choso nganzo yega choso nganzo doda me ba zeng ga chu de ne ge samde de da de pe semlia kanga shu ji li gi rwa da.
Times like this, one can imagine how easy it is for the mind to be overwhelmed by suffering, recognizing that one's happy and peaceful life is over, one being able to live with one's loved ones and those that one is close to, that opportunity is gone. Now one is imprisoned, one is being tortured, and for what? Not being able to recite words of praise to one's torturer? And all that one values has been taken away from one. And there's no end in sight. There's no solution to this problem within one's hand. So when you reflect on that lived situation, we can see how dire and desperate it was.
ane 결혼기 되사 전간을 주에서 강바지 여러바 전간 결혼 되사 강바디 니 곰냠네 준비 주康인심데 뭐바지 그래서 안다 결혼 안지게 도와다 사다 이민인가 두스칼레 자고도 디캡로 케바조도 갑리아 디캡로들레 세르 디캡로데 사다 도선마다 세르도 침부주에 삼제 디야 니 권초를 부여기 최부 부여기 돈달라 등을 해제 도체는 거라게 구여서 비마바지 그래서 ane yorong ge de ji konju ge dep ti chi cha de ti sang yi ge song ra bi sang yi ge ngal ya an di yu ya da dunga si ge tablam ting yu di nge jang yu sam be ge du she na sam dang gu re she na la mi ge di ko ro la lab shi kyap che ko ro di sam da ge di na di sam da de ne sam da de je ya 강아 유니민도 샘 회시시 지다 지 가랑아지 다디링아지 지도 다딩아 상이게 개와 주비에게 안도시 권조를 쳐부야 되나 루위에 샘배 삼다 나 정가나 되리 겁이야 안도시네 아니 두바 냠내지 주비 강 두칸 삼제 삼다제 안데야 안 소속에 잠제 삼다 안도시네 돼 안데지 대야 안 지게 사지 정가 사지 산다디 기차상 야치무유 디차상 오늘 신감이 디제 대야야 디나를 되제가 계절 냠는지야기 상기게 주요 고고 톱투야기 냠는지야 고가 빼고리 삼지 누진의 삼다인스 대단히 샘리아 다 강아 가이키는가 샘기를 회신신의 기용도스 회신시도스 강아 체마서 그런 게디 송구도와 제자를 그런 걸 냠녀토네 다디 삼는 당탕이 토네 냠녀토네디 두진의 샘기 강아디 마야자 디 삼는 담마토베나 대시에 바래 아 나도 남에 봐 전강 로상 알아 강아도 말아줬음 지능이 안쪽에 사실 초성 안쪽 기합 초성 안쪽 가서 되는 셈바 강아친 아니 제가 가 말해도 아니 가슴에 이무 차야다 아니 라시게게 냥알이 거봐 지상 되네게 삼는 당당에 토네 삼는 산 다시 당셔도 갈라 안디고 대시 강아 삼는디 삼는 강아도 기니 매바라 매도다 강아디 매바 lö시 차야디 삼는 당당에 토네 이 용구요 받에 세고 차기도 와
The lamas would give advice to their fellow prisoners, both the fellow monks as well as the non-ordained, reminding them that how they relate to situations or experiences, or how they relate to the world, is whether they experience happiness or suffering in relation to the world comes about independent on how they choose to relate to the world, how they think about situations. So they encouraged the monks to look at this prison, to relate to it not as a prison, but as a pure land, and not to look at their individual cell as a cell, but to relate to it as a retreat house. And the heavy burdens they had to carry, for example, rocks, to rather relate to them not as rocks, but to as gold. And gold, these large nuggets of gold that they were carrying and would later have to place down, and then mentally offer these large boulders of gold to the three jewels. And when they had to recite and memorize and recite the little red book, rather relate to it as if it were Dharma. And in this way, through relating to the ordinary in this extraordinary way, one accumulates merit. And utilize that merit then in the most skillful of ways to generate love for all those who are suffering. And through the generation of love, as well as the utilization of one's intelligence or wisdom, recognize that all within this prison, whether they're wearing a guard's uniform or that of a prisoner, are suffering. And generate the sincere motivation that the merit that is being accumulated through working in this pure land, residing in a retreat home, carrying gold and offering it to the three jewels, and memorizing and reciting the Dharma, all this merit dedicate so that all beings who are suffering everywhere, again, whether the guards, whether prisoners, whether those outside or not, may they all be reborn in pure lands and live with minds of love and compassion. And then those who are able to apply that advice well, even in the most dire of situations imaginable, their mind could stay joyous and peaceful with love and compassion arising within them. And thereby they were not at all in danger of being overwhelmed by the suffering that they were experiencing and that those around them were experiencing, because they related to it so differently. And these awful situations no longer were causes that could otherwise have led to depression or even suicide. So this is how they skillfully took care of their own mind, their own way of thinking and relating to the circumstances around them.
Christmas New Year na le de kabla tanga zuge semna sangbo shan le phembe chawa said and lunga yisum yokone shan la minu ba shan le phembe chawa ka to ji yin sembe samladi da yane yado sam da ya de je ane nibe de la soso kanga thi de kabla shan le ta ba na tanga ane ji ge kyo mare ane nga le ro che na pando che ya hu ye nga ji bu mare sembe ge du sam da de nga zu ge che mo che gore je sa de ne sam thone che ba na soso ge kanga di sembe kanga de se tu ya de na sam da na ro ji ba ro ji ni shi 지난 저기 베베게 카베기 셰시어데 기부랑게 맞제나 두범미 따용스 기부랑게 맞제나 두부미 따용스 두부미 따에서 결혼해가 디지오라 결혼 디디기미도 제가 망고리 그래서야 결혼디 제오래서야 결혼 디디기미도 써야 마강한 제한 미션다게 당하게 망고요래 이내 소소게 세면나 뢰시시시네 소소 기부 소소 따베네 미갈람네 강하팅 말이라래 그래서 기부랑게 맞제나 소소 맞제 소소 라랑 삼마다지 기부치 삼마다wen 제 삼마다wen 미션다기 기부다기 삼다wen 게디나 아 결혼디 디기면도 결혼디 결혼디 제고래서 뇨라시에 마음마도 근데 디기 두변 누아로 와스 지산 기부랑게 제고래서 기부랑게 마데나 라마 두고 미타야 세데티시게 디지바르다 아데네시나 한즈디 네 잠샤산디도 와
Just to, in a few sentences, summarize what we've looked at this morning, is that over this Christmas and New Year period, I encourage you to use it as an opportunity to firstly generate the determination to cultivate the essence of the Dharma within oneself, minds of love and compassion and the commitment to bring no harm to anyone, to harbor no ill will to others, to not allow any harmful minds that arise to abide, and rather to generate love and compassion for all, and also to not only cultivate such minds, but to express them in that wherever one can be of benefit to others, in whatever way one can do so, then do so. Help others, whether it's materially, whether it's through bringing love and joy into their life, whether it's helping them through the utilization of your own unique skills and talents, do so. And do so because they matter as an individual. Do so with love and compassion for them, caring for them. And lastly, I just want to share a Tibetan expression which summarizes the verse from the sutra well, which is that if you are not happy, you will be overwhelmed by problems and difficulties. You will encounter people and situations that do you harm, one after the other. But on the other hand, if you have taken care of your mind, taken a charge of your mind, ownership of your mind, and therefore you are in a happy place, you will experience no harm, no difficulties at all from those self-same situations. So thank you so much. Just in conclusion, from my heart, I wish you all a happy Christmas and New Year, and for the year ahead as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.